Boris Johnson is bracing for a Tory revolt in the Commons next week when his government's internal market bill will meet the objection of MPs who will seek to scupper the legislation unless it is amended to avoid it breaking international law. A Tory former cabinet minister has said it would be unacceptable to breach international law with legislation to override the Brexit divorce deal. Andrew Mitchell hit out at clauses in the government's internal market bill. He told BBC Radio 4's Today programme, "The proposition that we should march through the lobby as lawmakers and say that we are going to ignore and disavow a law that we have passed, to do with the rule of law, that is completely unacceptable." Mr. Mitchell said he backed large parts of the bill, but would not back it unless it was amended, stating, "To ask members of the parliamentary party to walk through the lobbies quite deliberately voting to breach international law is something which I cannot do, and which is causing very considerable anxiety and worry on the backbenches. We all want to help the government with these negotiations, but to do that flies in the face of all British tradition." Boris Johnson's controversial plan to override key elements of the Brexit deal he signed with Brussels has cleared its first Commons hurdle despite deep misgivings by some senior Tories. MPs voted to give the UK Internal Market Bill a second reading by 340 to 263, a government majority of 77. Two Tory MPs, Sir Roger Gale and Andrew Percy, voted against the bill, while 30 did not cast a vote, although some may have been paired with opposition MPs. The government tally was bolstered by the support of 7 DUP MPs. The Prime Minister said the legislation was necessary to prevent the EU taking an extreme and unreasonable interpretation of the provisions in the withdrawal agreement relating to Northern Ireland. He said some in Brussels were now threatening to block UK agri-food exports to the EU and to insist on tariffs on all goods moving to Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. However, some senior Conservatives warned they could not support the legislation in its present form after ministers admitted last week that it breached international law. MPs will begin detailed line-by-line scrutiny of the bill on Tuesday, with votes expected next week on amendments to the Northern Ireland provisions which some Tories may back. Sir Roger acknowledged he was in a tiny minority of Conservatives in voting against the bill, but predicted others could rebel when the Commons comes to consider the amendments which have been tabled. "I took a view that you fight this tooth and nail at every step. Others have quite clearly decided they want to hold their fire. There is much to play for yet," he told BBC Two's Newsnight. Even before the debate began, former Prime Minister David Cameron expressed his misgivings, and former Chancellor Sajid Javid and former Attorney General Geoffrey Cox said they could not support the overwriting of the withdrawal agreement. The intervention by Mr. Cameron, who said passing legislation which breaks international treaty obligations was the very last thing you should contemplate, means all 5 living former Prime Ministers have spoken out against the bill. In the Commons, Mr. Johnson, who took the unusual step of opening the debate himself, said the protective measures were necessary because the EU was now trying to leverage the Northern Ireland Protocol in the talks on a post-Brexit free trade deal. He said Brussels negotiators were threatening to ban the sale of UK agri-food products anywhere in the EU, creating an instant and automatic prohibition on the movement of such goods from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. "Absurd and self-defeating as that action would be even as we debate this matter, the EU still have not taken this revolver off the table," he said. Mr. Johnson said some on the EU side even wanted to designate all goods moving from Britain to Northern Ireland as being at risk of entering the EU single market, making them liable to EU tariffs. A number of Conservative former ministers made clear that they would not support any measure which breached international law, including Andrew Mitchell, Sir Oliver Heald and another former Attorney General Jeremy Wright. Sir Charles Walker, the Vice Chairman of the powerful Tory backbench 1922 committee, and Wakefield MP Imran Ahmed Khan, a member of last year's new intake of Conservative MPs, said they would not be supporting the bill at second reading. Sir Bob Neill, the chairman of the Commons Justice Committee, who has tabled an amendment requiring a vote of Parliament before ministers can exercise the new powers in the bill, urged MPs to take the opportunity to change and improve these clauses. Home Secretary Preeti Patel defended the controversial clauses in the Internal Market Bill. She told BBC Radio 4's Today programme, "This is a safety net, and that is why we have introduced this in this particular bill.